Hi and welcome to my channel. So a UK nurse has been sentenced basically to life in prison, and it is obviously said that she's never going to be able to even appeal or have any chance whatsoever of coming out of prison because of the circumstances that have led to her being in there, rightfully so. So this nurse is Lucy Letby, and the reason I can say this is because it's been really public. And I'm sharing this video today to reflect on how delicate it is working in healthcare. If you're a healthcare professional watching this, or you're planning to get into healthcare, or you're even working in the UK, or anything like that, it's being aware of some of the implications that come with the professions that we choose. And while as a nurse, I do not see myself in this league as this nurse, but I can say that there is quite a lot to reflect on, and there's quite a lot of lessons that we can all take from this particular incident, that has befallen us really. So if you're new to my channel, you're welcome. If you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate your time. And I hope that you're finding useful points to pick up from these discussions. I shared that video just yesterday. So I'm going to link that video at the end of this so that you can check it out to see exactly what the circumstances are. So like I said, UK nurse, obviously working for the NHS and in a neonatal unit, unacceptable behavior, absolutely out of this world. But what can we learn from this? For me, the first lesson is the fact that yes, healthcare is a delicate profession. But more so, what I'm reflecting on is the fact that we can be called upon at any point in our careers or even after our careers to answer questions for things that have happened during the course of our time, in healthcare. Because while the circumstances that this nurse has been sentenced for happened years and years ago, colleagues that worked with her at the time have been called upon to answer questions. And I was just thinking, I started working for the NHS about 11 years ago. So I'm thinking if something like this was to happen and I was called upon to answer questions for something that happened 11 years ago, how efficient would I be answering those questions? And I want you to leave a comment in the comment section if you were to be called upon today to answer questions about your job and things that happened 11 years ago with a particular colleague. Would you remember all the circumstances? Like, how would you feel about that? And for me, that is really my main, I don't want to say worry or concern, but that is really something that when I think about, I'm like, oh my goodness, if this was to happen to me, how do you even, you know what I mean? Because I was reading a newspaper article where somebody that used to work as the chief nurse, I think she was a chief nurse or head of nursing, during the time where this Lucy Letby was working in the neonatal unit, she was called upon to write statements about the events that happened that time. And understandably so, apparently, some consultants had raised concerns about this nurse to, the head of nursing. And from the consultant's own accounts, they did explain why they had concerns and explain, about everything that they thought was not going right. But obviously, the head of nursing, in her own account, says that she wasn't told what the concerns were, but she was simply told or informed to remove the nurse from the neonatal unit. So again, when you're looking at the fact that these are events that happened many years ago, how do you reconcile all these different points? Obviously, it is obvious that, this nurse has to go down for what's happened, obviously. But I mean, for those other people that are involved, how do you, it's something that when I think about, it's really scary for me because there's been so many disagreements between different parties. One person saying this, one person saying that. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I work as an advanced nurse practitioner myself for the NHS, which is why, like I say, I like to share content like this because I know that there are many people following this channel who are also healthcare professionals or wanting to get into healthcare. And so these topics are of national concern. These topics, you should be interested in these topics because incidents like this are going to set a precedence. And remember, the UK, for example, has a system of common law, which means that sometimes, especially for such horrific things such as these on crimes, you need one thing to happen and then that sets precedence for the others. So it is very, very important to keep an eye on what's going on in the media when it comes to your profession, healthcare, especially nursing, because even interviews, in job interviews, this is one of the most common interview questions that they ask. What is currently going on in nursing or in healthcare, or within the NHS, what is happening? And if there's something that is such a high profile case or incident, it is good to talk about it. Yes, interviews, that is an avenue excuse me, for you to talk about your values as a nurse, as a human being. And I think that if I had an interview recently, or if I was going for an interview, I would definitely be reflecting on incidents such as this, especially for those senior positions, because your leadership skills are going to be questions. It's not only about your leadership skills, but also your integrity as a human being, your values as a nurse, your ideas, as a person. And so that is why looking at such cases with the seriousness that it deserves is very important. So, would you remember all the events that have happened, with a colleague, or something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Like I said, I started working for the NHS 11 years ago. So it is crazy, but it emphasizes on the importance of documentation, because with your documentation, you can always then go back and say, oh, look, this is what I documented on the 8th of March 2003. This is what I documented on the 5th of April 2004. This is what I documented, during COVID-19 on the 15th of July, whatever it is. Documentation is key. Escalation as well, incident reports. If something happens, putting on that incident report, that's what is really going to be like, look, this is what you said, this is what happened. Because all those records are kept, all of that documentation is something that is going to remain. Yes, you can leave your job, you can resign, you can move on, you can even retire. Many of these colleagues that have been called upon have already retired. But when a case comes up like this, you can't just say, oh, I'm retired, I'm chilled out. No, because it is a criminal case, and you've got to stand up, defend not only your own position, because at that time you're defending your position as well, but you're defending the public, the British public, from a horrendous crime that has happened. And so you have a duty of care to those people that were hurt, but also to the people that exist right now and that have that public interest in this case. And so if you're in a leadership position or you're not, as long as you're in healthcare, you need to be aware that your practice can be called upon at any time, for you to answer questions about things that have happened, even if they were not related directly to you. But if it was a colleague, such as this case, you will also be expected to answer questions about it. And like I said, while I don't think that this nurse represents nursing, definitely doesn't represent me, but there's a lot to learn from this case. So what do you think about things like this? What do you think about cases like this? Again, for me, it's really about reflecting on the case. And I'm going to link a video here that I shared about the actual case and everything that has happened, and just other lessons really for us to think about. I think it's just me thinking aloud and wanting you to also think about your practice and being a healthcare professional and some of the implications that come with the job. So watch this other video.